We refer to the United States Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation as administered by the National Park Service. This is the accepted national standard for historic preservation projects. Our own Baltimore County Historic Preservation Design Guidelines directly reference and incorporate the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. We have important preservation issues to discuss and debate at each meeting. If you would like to make comments, please limit your comments to the specific application or proposal submission being reviewed. We ask for your assistance and understanding so that the discussions do not digress. As an additional comment, we can all agree that historic preservation is an important aspect of the quality of life and place that makes Baltimore County unique. As a commission, we seek to recommend significant buildings and places for landmark consideration to the County Council for their final vote. As commissioners, we serve on the commission due to our expertise, interest, and passion for historic buildings and places and review submissions based solely on their merit. While we may disagree on discussion and voting, we continue to be a collegial body that respects each other personally and professionally. Before I turn it over to Ed, thank you so much for all the support and help you've given me as I served my term as chair. I've really leaned on a lot of you who have a far deeper knowledge than I. So thank you very much. And Ed, you're up.
All right, I'll take over the meeting for the first bit of our elections. That's for the election of the chair. Do we have any nominations?
I name, this is Lily Mundroff. I name Phoebe Latosha.
Okay, do we have any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to close the nominations.
Motion to close?
Second, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close. Staff, would one of you like to do the roll call?
Sure. Sure. Could we please have Lily?
Yes.
Great. Chris Weston, please.
You're muted, Chris.
Guys,
Yes.
yes, Chris has indicated his vote. Great. Can we have Dan, please?
Yes.
Okay, Phoebe.
Yes.
Okay. Have Chris Parts, please. You've joined us by phone.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Ted, please.
Yes.
Great. Have Tom, please.
Yes.
Okay. Wendy. Sorry, Wendy, I don't see your sound up.
She says she has no sound in the chat.
Okay. Wendy, would you mind just typing your vote in? Okay, we'll move on to Ed for now.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know if John, you vote on this or not, but
No, and the answer is yes.
all right. Well, that's a quorum.
We have a
Yes.
unanimous approval. Phoebe, take over the meeting.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
becoming the chair.
Thank you all for your confidence in me to serve as your chair for this year. So I would now entertain nominations for our vice chair role.
I nominate Ed Horde.
I second.
Are there any other nominations, or we wish to close the nominations and call for a roll call?
I move to close nominations.
Yep. Okay, staff, if you could proceed with the roll call vote.
Great. We'll have Chris Parts,
Yes.
Chris Weston, please. Okay.
You're muted, Chris.
Yeah, I'm calling in from my phone.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, yeah.
All right, Dan, please.
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Ted, please.
Yes.
Okay. Wendy. Let's see. Sorry, Wendy. I'm gonna skip you again and close out with Madam President. Phoebe, please.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, congratulations, Ed, and thank you for agreeing to serve as our vice chair again this year. And I hope to not have to rely on you too much to serve in as the chair in my absence.
Thank you. Thanks for your confidence in me.
Okay, so I think then next on the agenda is that I will call upon staff to inform the members of the commission if there are any changes to the preliminary agenda.
Yes, we did remove the former item number 6 from the Prada property at 408 Murdoch Road in Towson, County Council District number 6. A few days ago, the owner had let me know that the work had already been completed, so is no longer eligible for our tax credit program.
Okay. Seeing that that is completed, I will now call for any proposed changes to the minutes and a motion to approve the November 14th, 2024 meeting minutes. Is there any discussion, changes?
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we can have a voice vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Great, then the minutes are approved. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda number 8, and I would ask for staff to read the staff recommendations.
Thanks, Phoebe. So the Hefner property is a final landmark at 101 Brightside Avenue in Pikesville, County Council District number 2. This is landmark number 211, the Hefner Hamburger Bungalow, also known as the Graham Hamburger Bungalow, and the applicants are seeking the in-kind replacement of the existing wood and composite rear deck. And staff's cited our historic design guidelines, chapter 7, fences and landscapes, county code section 32-7-405.
Okay, is there anyone who would wish to speak against the approval of this item or pull this from the consent agenda item? It's just one item, so or would the commissioners wish to have a discussion before we vote? Hearing none, if there's no objection, then I would accept a single motion for approval of the items as submitted before we have our vote.
I move that we approve the consent agenda item.
Okay, since it's a consent agenda item, I think we can just go straight to the vote. We're doing a voice vote rather than a roll call.
We need to get a second.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
I heard Wendy.
Oh, great, Wendy.
That's
I'm
good.
back.
You have sound. Wonderful.
I was down just long enough to miss nominating you, but I certainly vote for you, Phoebe.
Thank you.
Great,
So we have a
thanks, Wendy.
second, so now we can, staff can proceed in the vote.
Great, thank you. Have Chris Parts, please.
Yes.
Chris Weston,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Oh, great. Thanks, John. Lily,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
right, and Phoebe, please.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So next we can proceed with agenda item number 5, the Craig Howard property. So if staff could present the
Great.
item.
Thanks, Phoebe. So the Craig Howard property is located at 7405 Longfield Drive in Kingsville, County Council District number 5. This is final landmark number 240, the Langenfelder Farm or Rockwood and Stone Carriage House stable and setting. And the applicants propose a fence installation, chicken coop construction, repairs to the porch, garage, and roof. So the Langenfelder Farm is located on an L-shaped property of just over 5 acres. It has entrances on Longfield Drive and Long Knoll Way. The house is oriented with the original front facing towards the southeast swimming pool side, and the present-day front is located on the northeast side elevations facing toward Longfield Drive. The majority of the work is proposed in the west side of the house. So for work item 1, the new fencing, 2 new fence areas will be created. The first fence will be located on the west rear yard and will be an agricultural or garden style deer-proof fence with a 4x4 pine post and wood framed 8 feet by 5 feet tall hog panels topped with a trellis. The overall height of the fence will be 8 feet, and the top 2 feet will be open space topped with a trellis structure to create the deer-proof height while providing an open field that does not create visual obstruction except at the top bar. The fence wood would be pine and the color will be natural wood that is sealed against the weather. A note on zoning, Baltimore County allows for fencing higher than 6 feet in rear yards if they are set back from the property line as regulated by the zoning code. The location of this fence is set back far from the property lines and from the road, minimizing visibility. The second fence will frame the north rear acre of the property and will be 48 inches tall. This fence will be a 4-rail ranch rail fence. The rails used for this fence are smooth-cut rectangular planks of wood, 2x6 pressure-treated pine lumber. The fence is identical in style to the multiple rail fences originally found on the property surrounding the house and property on all sides and framing a pasture in front of the house and to the west and north in the rear of the house. This new north rear fence will be painted white and will connect to the other new fenced area. Work item number 2, the chicken coop. The original Langenfelder property was a much larger agricultural property that had 2 poultry houses and other agricultural use secondary structures. The larger property was subdivided, and these buildings, over time, they became dilapidated and were removed prior to its landmark listing in 2005. The applicant is requesting to construct a 12 by 12 chicken coop with an associated 12 by 22 feet run. It will be located off the southwest elevation of the house, south of the existing detached garage. It will be constructed of pine and hardwood cloth wire mesh. From the drawings provided in the application, the coop will be a simple pine and frame structure with a gable roof and an overall height of 14 feet. The attached covered run will also have a gable roof. There was no information about the exterior sheathing material or roofing material, and staff asked that the commission clarify those materials with the applicant. For work item number 3, to the main house porch. The applicants propose to make several repairs to the main house porch. The application notes that the porch eaves, column floor, and fascia boards have significant rotten wood in some areas. The work will include wood repairs where possible and to replace all rotten wood beyond repair with a new wood replicating the existing structure. Additionally, the application notes that most columns can be repaired except 3 that have deteriorated to the point that they no longer have structural sound. The application did not indicate what types of wood repairs would be used, such as patching, Dutchman repairs, piecing in, or other consolidation methods. Staff asked that the commission clarify what types of repairs will be made and types of products being used. The application noted within this work item that some work to the upper roof. Staff removed this work item 3 and created a new work item 5 to address the roof repairs. For work item 4, the detached garage. The garage is located about 100 feet west of the house. It is a 1-story, 1-bay by 3-bay structure with rubble stone on the southeast and northwest walls, with a terracotta tile parapet on top of them, the plain rubble stone on the southwest elevation. The southeast elevation has a door in the center and a glass block window on each side. The northeast elevation is open with a steel I-beam lintel and a CMU parapet above that contains cast concrete finales on each end. The detached garage is a later addition to the property and inconsistent in style and architecture to the main house and carriage house. The applicant is requesting to make repairs to the rotting and collapsing stucco in the steel I-beam, and the existing membrane roof will be evaluated and repaired as needed. The glass brick windows on the rear will be replaced with windows that are consistent with the windows used on the carriage house. The exterior will be cleaned and painted. The application does not mention what type of replacement windows will be used, nor the material or product information. Finally, work item 5, the main roof. Repairs will be made to the upper slate roof, including the in-kind replacement of any missing or damaged slate tiles. Roof flashing will be evaluated and repaired as needed, and the membrane roofing material will be evaluated on the top of the house and windows walk to identify the source of leaks. Repairs will be made as needed, and no information about the dimensions or type of slate was provided in the application, and no photos were provided. So staff's recommendation to the LPC for work item 1 is to approve as proposed. For work item 2, staff recommends the following conditions for approval: that the exterior be sheathed in a wood or cementous siding with smooth texture in either a board or batten, clapboard, or vertical plank style, that the roofing material be asphalt or metal roofing, and that this information should be submitted to staff prior to the start of work. For work item 3, staff recommends the following conditions for approval. Repair wood features using recognized wood preservation techniques such as patching with appropriate patching materials, piecing in, and consolidation methods. Only replace wood features if they are deteriorated beyond repair. Replace deteriorated wood features with matching new wood features. For work item 4, staff recommends the following for approval. Repair cracks by using a stucco mix similar to the material along crack lines in a manner that retains a solid base of historic stucco. Repair larger areas by using a stucco mix similar to the original stucco and should match existing adjacent surfaces in strength, composition, color, texture, and finish. Install stucco repairs when the temperature will remain above 50 degrees Fahrenheit for a minimum of 3 days after installation. When deterioration is so severe that repairs are impossible, windows must be replaced in kind, and to replace window style and product information must also be submitted to staff prior to the start of work. Then finally, for work item 5, staff recommends the following conditions for approval: that deteriorated sections of roofing such as slate, wood shingles, and clay tile be removed and replaced in kind with materials that match the existing in shape, size, profile, texture, color, installation method, and decorative pattern. Flat rubber or built-up roofing that is extensively deteriorated should consider replacing the entire membrane or other synthetic membrane roofing as an acceptable, suitable material. And citing Baltimore County Historic Design Guidelines, Chapter 3, roofs, Chapter 4, exterior walls and foundations, Chapter 5, porches and steps, and Chapter 7, fences and landscapes, County Code Section 32-7-405. Do we get all that?
Yeah,
Got it.
great.
Extensive.
Yes. So, is the owner of the property with us? Am I correct that I asked for the owner first before asking for staff or for commissioner comments?
Well, we do have Mr. Howard online with us.
Mr. Howard, would you wish to speak on this item on your property?
Yeah, Mr. Howard.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, so your recommendations as far as the materials to be used are all things that we've studied. So we were intending to use board and batten for the chicken coop. As far as repairing, we're going to use like materials, and we've read the guidelines as far as the fixing of the wood and replacing of it, and we're going to patch in where we can. This is just a large property, and it was neglected for a number of years, and so we're attempting to try to restore it back to as much of its original facade as possible.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, did you have any questions for Mr. Howard?
I have a question.
Yes, Ed.
Ed Howard, I am concerned about the garage, which is, I know was not built at the same time as the house, but it does look like it was built in the 40s or 50s, which puts it 70 to 80 years old. I would not remove the two windows in the back. I think the glass block are in keeping with the age of the building and the design of the building and sort of an Art Deco style. Southwest. I mean, it's a strange style, but nevertheless, I think seems in keeping, and I would keep those glass block windows. I
Those
think
it
they're,
was built in 1948. Those glass block are not original to the garage.
how do we know that?
They were put in at a later date. We've scoured to find photographs of the property, and it looks like they just had glass in those windows. I mean, they weren't framed. I mean, that garage was built and used with, I mean, this was an old estate, and the Langenfelders used a lot of materials that were probably just on the farm at the time.
What sort of window are you putting in then?
We would want to do something that it looks like the rest of the property, either a double hung or just a solid glass window, like on the main house when they added the garage. They put a glass, just a solid piece of glass.
I think that
In
would
the
be
center
better.
of the three-car berets.
A square window with a double hung is a strange proportion.
Yeah, which is why, I mean, we probably would do just a straight, I mean, casement, just so it's a solid piece of glass. Like you can see in the one picture, the garage to the left, there's a solid glass window right there. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you could do it could be an awning window if you wanted it operable. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it could be.
The glass block is just, I mean, it's an eyesore for when you look at the property, and I mean the integrity. I mean, the main house has its original windows, and the carriage house then looks similar, and then you have glass block windows.
I disagree,
street.
but I believe that the glass block windows are in keeping with the age of the building, even though it may not
Yeah,
have been
well, I mean,
right away.
historically, I mean, it was built in 48. The house was built in 98.
Let me finish. It is something that I think it's really a question of taste, and I don't have any problem with a solid pane of glass either. But I do believe that the glass block, in my view, is beautiful. So it's beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I happen to like the Art Deco accoutrements, even though if it was a later date, it's still in keeping, I think, with the type of building that this is. That's my comment. I'll leave it to the others to opine.
Thank you, Ed. Are there other commissioners who have any questions for Mr. Howard?
I have a question as well. Are you replacing any of those wood columns, like the ones that are severely deteriorated, or are you planning to just repair all of them in place or in kind?
The hope is to repair them in place. I mean, in keeping with the recommendation. I mean, when you read through the guidelines, I mean, the first option is to repair. That's our goal. If structural integrity of a couple of those posts are in question, and so it would just be on the recommendation of if they lack any structural integrity, is to replace them with identically built columns that are wood as well.
Okay.
I mean,
So
our
I
goal
would
is
just
to keep the property as restored as close to possible.
Right. So I would just make a recommendation, and maybe this follows with the windows as well. If you can submit some specs as to if you did have to replace one or two of the columns, that you note what you're replacing it with, whether it's like a column, like a wood column Somerset, or if it's a custom, someone will make it with the specs of the wood and all of the size and all of that. And I would do the same for the windows. So if you're proposing the glass block window to replace it with the casement window that matches the carriage house right at an angle from it, then it would be nice to have the specs for that window as well, the size and materials as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any additional commissioners who have questions, comments? Hearing none, I think the next, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on this case?
We did not receive any written testimony or have any members register in advance of the public.
Okay, thank you. Then I think the next step is to see if there's any further commissioner discussion or call for a motion.
I move we accept the recommendations as presented by staff.
Okay, and-
Second that.
okay, is there a discussion? We have any discussion of the motion? Anyone want to make any amendments? I think the motion did ask, or the staff recommendations did ask for some clarifications. And our discussion seemed to indicate a desire that the applicant submit some specs to staff regarding the solid glass window and the column repair.
I think the comments should be included from Lily in the
Okay.
motion.
So it sounds like it's the second motion, the motion to approve the work is completed with the following conditions of submitting to staff the specs for the window and column replacement or repair as needed, as well as staff recommendations for the exterior siding on the chicken coop.
Chicken coop, yes.
Yeah.
And just to keep it correct, I should withdraw my motion in favor of Lily's.
Or amend yours. You could amend yours.
We could amend it or withdraw it, whichever you, Madam Chair, you think is more appropriate.
I think Lily expressed it quite well, so I'll let you withdraw your motion, John.
Good.
And lost track of who seconded it and that they agreed with that as well.
It was me. I'd
Okay.
agree to the Lily add-ons.
Okay, so you'll be seconding Lily's motion add-on as well.
Yes.
Okay, great. Am I in keeping staff with our parliamentary procedure rules? Hearing no
That sounds good. Thanks.
subjections, then I will call for a roll call vote.
Great, thanks, Lily. Could we have Chris Parts, please?
Yes.
Great. Chris Weston,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Lily, please.
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Ted. Might be muted, Ted.
Go ahead, Ted, I unmuted you. You can come back to him.
Yeah. Have Wendy, please.
Yes.
And Ted put his yes vote in the chat.
Okay.
So
Maybe he's having
Phoebe?
the same
Yes.
problem I had.
great. Thank you, Phoebe.
Okay, great.
And,
So
Mr. Howard, I'll follow up with everything tomorrow just to to have that all clarified what staff's recommendation are.
thank you
I
for that
appreciate that.
anonymous
Thank you.
approval.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so next we are ready to move on to agenda item 6, the Costa property.
Great.
So staff, if you could present the case.
All right, folks. Just to give us a refresher of the last few meetings, Historic Preservation staff was contacted in November 2023 and informed of the construction of a two-story garage on the property without LPC review and without a building permit. Subsequently, a stop work order was issued by code enforcement on December 1st, 2023, with instructions to contact our office. The applicants came before the commission at the March 14th, May 9th, September 12th, and November 14th, 2024 meetings, seeking an ex post facto review of the partially constructed two-story, 26 by 48 accessory structure with a height of 30 feet, with a four-car garage and a gym and office space on the upper floors. Testimony was heard and submitted from several neighbors in the community at all meetings. There was a mix of support and opposition. The major concerns were the height, size, visibility, and compatibility to the historic district. The LPC denied the requests at the 4 previous meetings, citing that the size and design of the structure did not meet our design guidelines. The technical committee that visited the site after the September meeting recommended that the existing height of 30 feet and footprint be reduced to make the overall size and massing more to scale with the primary dwelling. In addition, they recommended keeping the design simple and adding fenestration on the most visible elevation. It was noted that the location of the structure as well as the proposed materials met our design guidelines. At the November 14th, 2024 meeting, the applicants returned with altered plans and a new design that included reducing the existing two-story structure with a size of 26 by 48 feet and a height of 30 feet to 1.5 stories, measuring 26 feet by 30 and a height of 19 feet and 7 inches, with a salt box roof style. Additionally, an 18 by 26 shed roof carport was proposed on the north elevation. The commission asked that the carport be removed and that the salt box style roof be changed to a gable style. The applicants have now returned with an updated proposal that includes the following: reducing the existing two-story structure with a size of 26 feet by 48 feet with a height of 30 feet to 1.5 stories, measuring 26 by 30 feet with a height of 19 feet 7 inches with a gable style roof. The first floor will have a 2-car garage. The second floor will be used for storage with a max interior headroom of 6 feet 5 inches. The north elevation will have a single craftsman style single entry door. The attic story will have a single window on each end. The south elevation, which is the most visible elevation, will have 3 evenly spaced bays on the first level, a single craftsman style door, and 2 windows. The roof will be covered with standing seam metal and the exterior walls will have vertical hardy board siding. The west elevation will have a pair of double carriage style garage doors. Staff would like to note that the structure is appropriately located in the rear side yard. The proposed height is lower than the overall height of the main house. The square footage of 780 feet is less than the main house. The design is simple, making it visually subordinate to the main house. The proposed materials and style of doors and windows are appropriate and meet our design guidelines. Staff appreciates the property owner's willingness to work with the commission and make changes. Staff feels that the reduction in footprint and gable roof style make the structure more in line with our design guidelines, and staff asks the commission to discuss the changes and determine if the structure now complies with our guidelines, and if so, to vote to issue a certificate of appropriateness. So we are citing Baltimore County Historic Design Guidelines, new construction, addition, and non-contributing structures, County Code Section 32-7-405.
Okay, thank you, staff. Is the homeowner or representative of the Costas on the call?
Yes, but I believe we hear our public testimony first.
Oh, okay.
Am I correct in that, Caitlin?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
okay.
public testimony first.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for that correction. So are there members of the public who are registered to speak?
Yes, so first we have Mr. Andrew Clemens. Mr. Clemens submitted testimony that was circulated to staff prior to tonight's meeting. And Mr. Clemens, if you're ready, I will unmute you. All right.
Everybody, my name is Andrew Clemens, and I urge you to again reject the latest plan for the Costa building. It is still too tall and it is still too large. At each and every meeting, the LPC members have commented that the building is too tall and too large of a footprint. Despite this clear direction, the plans called for the same footprint in March, May, September, and November. The height of the building was lowered to 19 feet 7 inches in September. At all of the meetings through November, most members noted that the height needed to be lowered to 15 feet. So here we are again, and the building is still 19 feet 7 inches. If 19 feet was too tall in September and it was too tall in November, then it must be too tall in January. Beginning March of 2024, several committee members told the Costas they needed to plan a simple two-car garage. An average two-car garage is 20 to 24 feet wide, 20 feet deep, with 8-inch high walls. Yet the Costa garage plan is 30 feet wide, 26 feet deep, and has 10-foot ceilings in that 19-foot tall building. Now, Mr. Costa told a committee member in September that the roof line was that height because he needed a 3-foot beam to carry the roof. Well, I'm not an engineer, but I sincerely doubt that a 3-foot beam is needed for a normal two-car garage. Mr. Costa's entire focus has been to salvage as much of his illegal construction as possible. But this committee's focus needs to be on what is best for the village of Corbett, not to help the Costas save an illegal building. Setbacks, which have been discussed and have always been said to be a zoning issue, are not just a zoning issue. The LPC guidelines for site design, 6-2, say that they should retain established property setbacks, front and side yards. That's clear, plain English. This is an LPC issue, and the committee needs to make sure that this building meets that guideline before it is passed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clemens. Is there another registered speaker?
Yes, next we have Miss Barbara McFarland. Miss McFarland, I have you unmuted.
Okay. The newest plans for the Costa Garage are a distinct improvement over the last submission. The elimination of the carport and the replacement of the salt box roof with a symmetrical gabled roof are more in keeping with the architecture of historic Corbett. However, because of its height, its width, and its location so close to the east property line, the view from Corbett Village Lane is still problematic. From past hearings, I'm aware that the LPC is reluctant to address the height and setback issues and is willing to let them be decided instead by the zoning variance process. This approach seems contrary to the spirit of preserving our county and nationally designated historic district. The LPC's Historic Preservation Design Guidelines states its purpose is to ensure that new construction within an historic district is sensitive to the scale and historic nature of the district. By green lighting a too tall, too wide building built too close to the property line, both the scale and historic nature of the village are violated. I'm also aware the LPC seems interested in lessening the financial impact on the owners by allowing them to retain much of the original footprint of the illegally built structure. By accepting a minimal lowering of the height and shortening of the length as sufficient, you enable the owners to use the foundation and 3 of the 4 walls that have been erected and to use the existing roof rafters. But your primary purpose should be to protect the established historic district, not to compromise with an owner who designed and built an inappropriate structure and made no effort to seek building permits or historic approval prior to its construction. But you've heard all of this already. Again, I remind you of the central question: would the commission approve the current plans for the structure if no construction had begun. Many neighbors and historians have voiced objections over the past year regarding the height, footprint, and setback, the willful disregard of county building regulations, and the undermining of the property values and historic status of the village. We are all frustrated with this process, but are committed to preserving historic Corbett. If you decide, despite these objections, to approve the newest plans, I have one suggestion that I hope you will consider. Perhaps the impact could be lessened by using the north foundation wall where the carport had been proposed as the northern wall of the garage, thereby effectively moving the garage 18 feet farther back from Corbett Village Lane. The adjustment is in keeping with the Baltimore County Historic Preservation Guidelines. Section 6C3 says new accessory structures should typically be in rear yards or less visible areas of a site. And Section 6C4 says new detached garages should be located appropriately in the rear yard. I appreciate all the time and thought and energy you've devoted to this issue. Thank you for continuing to help us preserve the character of our village.
Thank you, Ms. McFarland. Is there another registered speaker?
Yes, I see, maybe Miss McFarland, if you and your husband are using the same, computer, then, Mr. John McFarland, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I feel that several comments made by an LPC member and a staff member in the past were incorrect. First, it was said that people opposed to the size of the garage were using the tactics of death by 1,000 cuts to destroy it. We knew what we wanted from the beginning, but we were forced to respond to the many inadequate changes that came with each new proposal. Second, a staff member summarizing the letters we had sent in characterized them as having the same comments we had sent in previously. But these letters addressed the details in the latest proposal and represented a lot of time and effort on our part. Also, it was said by a committee member that the opposition was coming from people who are not friends of the Costas. I mean, this again is reducing the value of our responses. Now, the problem with the current proposal is the wide, high gable end that is located on the south end of the foundation facing Corbett Village Lane, making it more visible to the village. I assume the building continues to be located there to preserve the illegally placed plumbing pipes and save the expense of moving these pipes 18 feet to the north. This is not a reason not to move the garage to the most appropriate location at the north end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McFarland. Staff, if you could confirm that concludes
Yep.
our registered speakers?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Phoebe.
Okay. Then do we have the property owner? We're ready to move on to the property owner, the Costas.
Yes, I
Yes, okay.
have Miss Gina and Mr. Nate Costa. You are unmuted.
Hello?
We seem to get a little bit of feedback. If you could adjust your sound appropriately.
One sec. Okay. My wife's
That-
phone was close. I think, is that better?
Yes, that is better. Thank you.
Excellent. I don't have honestly too much to add, except for I'll kind of repeat my statement, is that I am open to every suggestion that the LPC makes, and moving, reducing the height, all those things. I feel like that's what I've done every time we've made a revision. In the last part of the call 2 months ago, I asked the committee, so if I get rid of the carport, get rid of the back wall, and the height of either 15 feet or 19 feet would be determined by what the rooftop looks like. So I sent pictures of what every rooftop in our neighborhood looks like. I also have a drawing that if you want to see what a rooftop of the building at 15 feet would look like, honestly, I just want this process and everybody's energy and time to be over. And so what your recommendations are, and as clear as they can be, of how do we make this be something that can be approved by this committee, is what I'm hopeful for by the end of this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Costa. Did your wife also wish to speak, or
No, she doesn't.
is not? Okay. Thank you. Are the commissioners have any questions for the property owner or comments that they wish to make?
I have a question on some photographs or some drawings popped up on the screen while he was talking, which I believe show a 15-foot roof. So that's another option that you're proposing?
Yes, I wanted to show what the 15-foot roof would look like, the pitch, and then just to show the pictures of the neighborhood. Again, if this committee decides that they like the 15-foot roof, you tell me that's what it needs to do, and then that's what I will do. Honestly, you tell me to move it to the north end, I will move it to the north end. You tell me to add a window on the side, I will add a window on the side.
I'm not sure. I think I liked it better with the 19-foot because it gives it more of a pitch that seems more in keeping with the houses in the neighborhood. The other is a very low slope roof, which I don't know. I'd welcome other people's comments and on the commission and what other people think of that, of the two different options.
I agree with that on Ed, that the 19, yeah, and the 19 seems to have the roof pitch match. Do you know, this is a question for the owner, do you know the roof pitch of the house and then what you were originally proposing in the earlier submittal versus this 15-foot?
I don't know the exact number, but I know that that this is very close. It's not exactly the same, but
Okay.
it is.
But this is the close, okay.
Clarify, you mean this, meaning the 19-foot versus the 15? Which one do you mean by this?
Yeah, the 19 showed up,
Okay.
I think. Yeah, this is the 19, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The 15 has the shallower and eliminates that window at the top. Yeah.
I have another question. Are you saying that you are willing to move it to the north foundation, to the north end of the foundation?
100%.
Well, I think that maybe that solves at least some of the problems of the neighbors.
I also agree that the 712 pitch roof is much more successful. It has the massing of an agrarian building.
Are there other commissioners who wish to comment?
Yes.
Wendy,
I
yes.
was asking a question of Mr. Costa. What, I'm confused. What is it that you are willing to move to the north end?
The entire structure, to move it further towards the back. The way it's positioned now, it is closer to the front of the yard.
Okay, so that would take it away from the property line
No,
that it's close to now. Is that correct?
no.
No?
It would be moving it, I assume, along the same line, on the same foundations, moving it to the back end of those foundations rather than the front end to make it further away from, yep, more or less. I mean, It's a little different than that, but
Yeah, I would be curious to look at those surveyors, because of the way the property line runs, it gets wider towards the back there, and there's more of a hillside on the property line that separates us there. But that's my own speculation of thinking that it actually does get better the further it gets back.
Would it be down the slope of the hill any?
No.
no.
Because that's, exacerbates the people's objections on it being too tall, is because not only is it tall, but it's, on the top of a hill.
You're
So,
following the same slope, same
Yeah,
grade
okay.
elevation generally on the
Yeah.
all the way back. It's pretty
So-
much level. That part of it.
And you are putting it closer to the trail then, right? I mean, so you kind of have to make the decision whether it's
Well,
too
yeah.
tall from the front, or is it too tall from the path?
When we did the site inspection, I felt like the trail was not really an issue, particularly when the foliage is out. But even standing there, and we were up there after the leaves were down, it's hard to get much of a visual. I feel like from the trail.
Big slope, lots of trees.
Yeah.
Well,
But
it
in terms
depends.
of the guidelines, I mean, if as staff's recommendations seem to be that the building is in keeping with the size of the original house and it's in the rear yard,
Already.
right?
Yes, it is, but because of the way the street goes up the hill and where it is, it's very visible from Corbett Village Lane, which of course is the only street, in the little village. And it just seems very harder and harder to preserve these villages because people who move in, I can understand, want to have more room, want to have modern conveniences and so on. But unfortunately, when you sign up to live in a registered village, I mean, that's the things you give up. And this was very unfortunately just built, not having any, permits from the county. Had it gone through the proper procedure, they would have applied to the county for permits that would have been red flagged. It would have been sent to us, and we would have started before any building occurred and solved these problems. And it just seems like we're always kind of giving in, and then the character of the villages that we are supposed to preserve, bit by bit, they're taken away.
I disagree with that a little bit. I think by moving it to the back, it's farther from the road. And in fact, I'll make a motion that the commissioners vote to move the building to the back of the foundation, allow the height as proposed, and also suggests that appropriate landscaping be put on the Corbett Village roadside that would hide some of the profile of the building.
And I can assure that that is our plan from a landscaping. I know we've said that in previous, but the plan is for it not to be visible at all from the road.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Ed and John. Is there any discussion from the commissioners?
I just had something to add. I mean, we should make it a specific condition rather than a floating. If we're gonna put trees or some sort of buffer, it should be a definitive with that. And I would tend to agree that that it seems from reading all the testimony, because we get all the testimony, we see pros, cons, we see everything that's not necessarily mentioned on here. And the other thing is, we're not necessarily here to punish or enforce anything that's outside of us determining what is correct for the Historic Preservation Commission. which is not ours. We know it was a structure put there illegally, but we're not here to specifically judge on that aspect. I think it would provide more ease for the people living in the community to have it moved where it's not seen by the community versus the trail. Most of the testimony has appeared to me, people saying, I don't like seeing this from my house as much as I do. So the only thing I would amend to that is that we specifically say there has to be buffer trees added, and if you want to put a location where, or leave that up to staff.
Okay,
I-
John, would you entertain amending your motion to have it a requirement that there be the tree buffer as opposed to just a suggestion?
Yes.
Okay, and our second, I think that was that.
I agree with that.
Okay, so the amended motion is on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Do I need to repeat the motion or have John repeat the motion?
This is
If you
Chris.
wouldn't mind repeating it.
Yeah, Chris, do you want to have your comment before we repeat it?
No, that's okay. Go ahead and repeat it.
Okay. So I believe the motion was to follow staff recommendations to allow the garage with the 19-foot height and to shift it to the north end of the foundation and to require that there be a tree buffer. Did I get that right, John?
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess, PB, my comment is, so the staff recommendations were not to move it to the north, correct? It was-
Right.
Yeah,
So that was
That would be a
amended.
condition, yeah.
Condition.
okay. And the reason for that is simply to push it further back from the street edge, is that correct? Okay. And I guess my further question then is that, I mean, that's pushing it beyond what, we believe the guidelines are currently. The guidelines basically are indicating that it is to be a rear yard condition, which it effectively is.
It would seem that either, whether it's on the north end of the foundation or the south end of the foundation, it's still in the rear yard. Am I
Correct.
correct?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, this is just our condition,
Right.
and both would adhere to the guidelines.
Correct. Okay.
Of course, the guidelines also say it shouldn't be over 15 feet tall. And it should be not as close to the property line. So we're not following a lot of them, so.
Those are actually the zoning code.
That's zoning.
So we don't specifically have a height or setbacks for that because they're mentioned in the zoning code. So that's
Wendy, that's a zoning requirement. Ours says it should be compatible with the house, with the main structure. That's our only thing. We don't specify a height because it could change from property to property. We ask it to be in proportion to the existing house.
Okay, but are we ready for a roll call vote then?
I just have a clarification. Are you voting to approve it with the conditions, or are you voting to deny it and you want to make these changes and want them to come back?
The motion on the floor was to approve it with the conditions.
Okay. And will they be submitting their updated plans to staff
to
make sure that they meet the conditions prior to moving on?
That would seem to be a good suggestion, to require
I'll defer to you on that, Caitlin. My assumption was that if the plans we saw, if they just slid them 15 feet back or whatever that allowed on the pad there, that those plans would essentially be the same plans. But if there's some risk that they may vary from that, absolutely they should resubmit.
Well, the only thing I said is we want updated plans on our ends because when they submit them for a permit, we need to make sure that they match.
Good.
Okay. Okay, so we will include in the motion then that the plans be submitted to staff so that they can be confirmed that they match.
Yes.
Okay, are we ready then to proceed with a roll call vote? And a reminder, it's to approve the staff recommendations with the condition that the garage be shifted to the north end of the foundation and that there is a condition that there be a tree buffer. And presumably the tree buffer would be included in the plans that would be submitted. Okay.
Phoebe, I can move forward with the roll call.
Okay, great.
Great. Okay. Can we have Chris Parts, please?
I yes for approving with the staff recommendation and that tree buffer. I don't feel that it needs to move back, but I would not be opposed to that.
Chris Weston, please.
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Lily,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Wendy, please.
No.
Okay. And Phoebe, please.
Yes.
Great, thank you. We have 9 affirmative votes and 1 dissenting, so the motion passes with 10 votes.
Thank you. And I think we can all agree that it has been a back and forth process, and we now have some resolution.
Great, and thank you to the Costas and to all the neighbors who submitted their testimonies and spoke.
Okay, so our next agenda item is number 7, the Schulman property. If staff could provide the background information on that.
Thank you, Phoebe. Yes, so the Schulman property is at 614 Milford Mill Road in Pikesville, County Council District number 2. This is a contributing resource within the Sudbrook Park Expansion number 1, Cliveden Road County Historic District. And we are reviewing the ex post facto installation of a 6-foot vinyl fence. So the property at 614 Milford Mill Road was constructed in 1920 in the Craftsman bungalow style and is a contributing resource in the Sudbrook Park Expansion 1 district. The home has an asphalt side gable roof with a prominent gable dormer, a modest front porch that runs along the length of the facade. The home is clad in asbestos shingles and appears to retain the original 1/1 windows, door, and side transoms. The Sudbrook Park Expansion 1 Cliveden Road was designated in 1995 to include 18 additional properties along Cliveden Road and Milford Mill Road. Staff would like to note that the majority of homes in the expansion were constructed in the 1950s, and the property that's at 614 Milford Mill Road at 605 Cliveden Road are the only examples of Craftsman architecture. On December 5th, 2024, preservation staff was contacted by a neighbor who noticed that 6-foot vinyl fencing was being installed at the property. The neighbor asked us if the project had received a review by the LPC and if there was a permit. Staff confirmed that neither a permit nor LPC approval was given. Staff directed the neighbor to report the issue online, and we also informed our inspector. A correction notice has not been issued yet, however, and staff was able to get in touch with the property owner. The applicant is seeking the ex post facto review of a 6-foot high white vinyl privacy fence installation along the rear and side yards. The current 167 linear feet vinyl fencing replaced a previous 72-foot run of chain linked fencing along the rear yard. The application notes that there is existing 6-foot high vinyl fencing at a neighboring property at 618 Milford Mill Road. However, 618 is outside of the historic district boundaries. There is vinyl fencing at 612 and 614 Cliveden, where a previous wood fence was installed. these properties may also be in violation. Regardless, the commission can only discuss the project in front of them. Additional existing fencing in the area include chain link installed prior to the district's formation in 1995, wood picket fencing, and 6-foot wood privacy fencing. Staff would like to note that the overall fence height and its location do meet our guidelines. However, the vinyl material does not. Vinyl may be considered on a case-by-case basis, and the commission previously allowed a 6-foot vinyl fencing on a property that shared a property line with a community pool, which was not in the historic district. In this situation, the vinyl was only along one portion of the side yard and wood was used elsewhere. Staff asked the commission to consider the age and type of buildings within this portion of Sudbrook Park. It is a separate district from the original Sudbrook Park boundaries. The houses consist of 1950s minimal traditional style homes, mostly brick Cape Cod. In addition, please also consider the existing fencing in the area. So staff recommendation to the LPC is to determine if the proposal has an appropriate material for the home and historic district or has a minimal visual impact to the historic district, and then to approve, deny, or modify accordingly, citing Baltimore County Historic Design Guidelines, Chapter 7, Fences and Landscapes, County Code Section 32-7-405. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any, I guess, public comments on this particular
So
case?
there's no registered speakers for this agenda item. However, we did receive one letter of opposition from a neighbor that was circulated to the commission.
Okay, thank you. And is there a the property owner on the phone?
I do believe we have the property owner with us. Let me see. Yes, Mr. Schulman, I have you unmuted if you'd like to address the commission. Hey, Mr. Schulman, can you hear us? Hey. See, we can begin discussion, and if Mr. Schulman is able to get his audio working, then feel free to jump in.
Okay, okay, we got a comment from one of the Schulmans. They can hear us. And
is this better? Can you hear me now?
yes, we can. Thank you.
It's all about the right microphone.
Yes. So thanks.
Good. First off, I wanted to thank you guys for what you do, and especially with it being a volunteer, you can't get any more important than that. I work for a nonprofit, and it's very important what you do. Yeah, as I mentioned initially, we ran into a snafu with this project. The fencing contractor that we hired was supposed to pull the permit and get approval. I also am a licensed MHIC contractor. He went ahead and put the job on the schedule, and he told his boss that he thought I was pulling the permit, and that wasn't the case. My neighbor in the back at Levinson came over and said, "Hey, there's no permit pulled." I said, "Of course there's a permit pulled." And as soon as we found out, I got with the owner of the company and found out that what the snafu was. I immediately sent a message over to Jessica Brannick and got on track with getting this process handled. The fencing company subsequently the same day applied for the permit in order to meet the requirements, doing things the way we're supposed to do it. That's how the situation happened. So the fence was installed, and now we're playing catch up on that, knowing that this is not the correct or desirable way to do this. We did anticipate acceptance for the project because of the other 6-foot vinyl fences in the historic area. You can see in the picture on the right, back behind that rear fence, you see the other white vinyl fence back there. That's in the historic district. And again, the one 50 feet to my left is not in the historic district. This is the view from the front road, from Cliveden, where it's completely visible from the front of the street. From my house, there is literally no visibility of that fence. So those were the conditions that we figured it would not be a problem to get the permit, get approval. And that was our plan. And I will add that the salesman that I dealt with that put the job on the schedule without approval no longer works for the fencing company. So that's how we got here and where we are.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation of how we got there. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Schulman, particularly focused on the appropriate material question that staff raised and the visual impact?
Mhm.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the fence.
A second.
So for this case, we would want to issue a notice to proceed rather than a certificate of appropriateness, because it's final and it's case by case basis. Versus
Should I
being
change my
appropriate.
motion to?
No, you said you want to accept it. We're just we're instead of issuing a certificate of appropriateness, we'll be issuing a notice to proceed.
Do we want to state any findings of fact of why we're stepping away from the design guidelines, just so it's not open season on guidelines, but for the very specific reasons in this unique circumstance, we've found it appropriate to step aside from those guidelines?
Yes, we should.
I would say that it has very limited visibility from Milford Mill Road, which is really the historic edge there. I think you can see it from Clifton, but that's not part of the historic district, if I'm understanding correctly.
Safe to say, due to the limited visibility and the prevalence of other similar material fences in the immediate vicinity, we found it acceptable to accept this alternate material.
Mhm.
But I disagree with that a little bit because I'm concerned that I understand that we're accepting on a case by case, but then if we are also saying that it's because it's not visible, then what will the next neighbor do? The same thing as far as following these guidelines? And
well, I think we need to state why we are stepping away from the guidelines, because otherwise then the guidelines are arbitrary and capricious, and it's whatever we felt like that day, which is not the case.
So one of the things I would avoid, I agree with you, Tom, but one of the things I would avoid would be saying, because of the prevalence of other fencing in the area, we don't know why that was approved or whether it came through a different approval guideline. So I would suggest that we are approving it because of the visibility and because it is so borderline on the historic district that it does not have the impact it might have in the center of the historic district.
Also, the age of the houses, it's not the Victorian village, Summer Park. It's a separate, so this is technically a separate historic district from them. I mean, it's in the same.
Still 105 years old. And I'm concerned with the other saying anything about the other fencing, because the other fencing is happening outside the district line. So I have a problem. I mean, I think it's minimally visible from Milford Mill, but it is very visible from a lot of neighbors' backyards. And I have a problem with precedent that we set. So I can't vote for, to approve this.
can I make
I'm
a
in agreement.
suggestion with going along with this, which is there a way to maybe consider doing part of it in the wood and then transitioning to the back? So is there an in-between?
I mean, I find that if we're going to have guidelines, we ought to follow the guidelines.
Well, don't the guidelines say that vinyl can be approved on a case-by-case basis? So here where you have no visibility, literally no visibility from the main road, and it's completely concealed behind the house, that seems to me to be at least worthy of consideration.
And we are considering it.
Right. Right.
I'm just,
I'm just trying to,
Yeah,
Ed, I'm with you there, and I just want to make sure that in saying, well, if we're going to say in this case, we need to be able to explain what is unique about this case to allow for this to proceed, so that we can start to define boundaries about not setting an undue precedent where, there was a mix up and they installed the wrong stuff, but we gave them a break and we're done. Because then all of a sudden magically everyone, hey, their contractor screwed up. Sorry about that. And, and we're stuck with this and we're getting, vinyl windows, same thing we see all the time that, oh, my contractor didn't know.
well, it was in the back, so I should have been able to do it.
Right.
even though
So-
our
so-
guidelines say no, so it's.
So I said, so if we want to allow for this, I just think it's really important that we say, what about this allows us to accept that on a case by case basis? What about this case makes it appropriate?
and that gives us benefit of the doubt too with stuff, because it's not fairly low, low visibility versus no visibility are two separate things. I mean, at bare minimum, like Lily was saying, is there a kind of an in between? Because you can see from these pictures, you see a visible front fence from the front, and you shouldn't see a visible fence. So there should be some sort of in between. Because if this came up initially, in the right process, given if everything is truthful, everything, it just was just a honest mistake kind of situation. I mean, I would still be voting, hey, you got to put up a wood fence instead, because that's the preferred. Just because 2 or 3 other ones do, it's still preferred for the historic house. And I believe what is it? 2 of them are from 1920s versus the other ones from the 1950s. So, I would be looking more for an in between on my side.
Thank you, Daniel. And you do raise a good reminder that, we need to be looking at this case, as if it were presented to us, without the fence already be there, that really on its own merits. What would we have approved if this were coming to us in the first place and there was not a fence already installed?
And on the last one, the one we did approve, we only approved the fence on the very border of the historic district, facing a swimming pool, a commercial facility, or, a community facility that was on the edge of it. So I think that, it's a little, it was different than this. This is, within the historic district all around.
And it's also the height of it too, which is part of, it's not just a 4-foot fence, it's a 6-foot fence. I mean, just considering the barrier of what it creates in terms of, and I understand that the 6 foot is allowed in the back. I'm just talking about, you have the material, you have the height. So it's these two things that are effectively, it's a considerable amount of non-compliant material.
Sitting in the middle of the historic district, of this part of the district. Not in the middle, but it's not on the edge. It's not on a property line.
Yeah, the house to my left is the last house in the historic district.
It is the last house, but yours is not. So that's
Right.
my problem.
Yeah, the house to my right isn't even a compliant house. That's been renovated, I think.
What's the road over to I guess it's to the east?
That's Cliveden.
Well, I bet you can see it from Cliveden.
I'm sorry?
I bet you can see the fence from Cliveden.
I bet you can see the fence from Cliveden.
Maybe not. Yeah, a lot of trees. Well, in the summer, probably not.
Yeah.
Are those the houses that didn't have a review?
I'm sorry?
Are those the houses that didn't have an LPC review?
These ones.
I don't know if they did or not. That's one picture, and there's another section that's.
We do not have a record of.
So,
There
so
used
are
to,
these the
they,
ones
there
that
used to,
necessarily?
yeah, there used to be wood fencing in the same location from photographs we have, but we have not had a review.
Yeah, the interesting thing too, the fence style that we chose to put up there is tongue and groove vinyl planks. And not that I would want to do it, but I literally could do the same fence in tongue and groove wood with the top plate and bottom plate and paint it white, and it would have the exact same appearance.
The issue is our guidelines say no vinyl fencing, so.
No, the guidelines don't say no vinyl fencing. It says vinyl fencing may be approved on a case-by-case basis. I'm trying to figure out is, so for the ones with the vinyl fencing, if they were done in the past 10 years without a review, we can't really base it off of that because they would have been, it should have gone through the LPC, correct? Are we using this as a base for the possibility of even okaying this if they weren't, if it didn't go through the LPC, yet it's there from the past 10 years? Unless I'm confused, so correct me if I'm wrong on this.
Technically, we should not base it on them because they're in violation, except it's never been brought to our attention until now.
Yeah, so for me, it's, I'm not going to say, oh, hey, these are vinyl fences. It's fine because there's other fences that are vinyl that match up. Those other fences, you know, we can't base on that, but those other fences theoretically should not even be there for comparison. So you have one vinyl fence approved versus nobody else, and where there should be wood. Mhm. Do you have the picture of the view of the west fence?
Not on this presentation. It's I have to open up the file.
I also have a question. Is the house, if you're facing the house to the left, is it part of the district or no?
If you're the on the left picture,
Yeah.
that brick house is the end of the district.
Okay. So
And
that
the,
is included, basically.
yeah, the house to the left is included, and the second house that is not included
Right. Okay, I
is
see.
again 6-foot vinyl fence around
So,
the rear yard.
okay, so I'd like to just make maybe a suggestion, and maybe other commissioners can weigh in on it. My suggestion is that there is a front section, even though it's in the rear yard, but that front section that meets that, there's an existing 4-foot wood fence between the houses. So that your replacement match the material up to a certain point, maybe the end of the garage. And then also if the fence is visible on that, on the corner, on the side street, that part of that gets replaced, and then leaving the rest as is. So eliminating some of the sections and turning them into wood, whether it's the porosity, like you have a 4-foot plus a 2-foot open and it's wood, and then you leave the rest. Right, so that's wood, right? In the newer photo, in the newer photo of the vinyl fence, you have wood on the left.
Okay, let me catch up to, I'm not sure what you're saying. The picture that was up just a moment ago, one back?
From Cliveden?
No, that one there. Yeah, that's the first house that's not in the historic district. That's the vinyl fence off to the side there. And like I said, those were the reasons we assumed that that one is not in the historic district, so that didn't matter. And the one in the back, we assumed, of course, that those had been approved by LPC. Right, LPC, I got that right.
Right, at the end of the driveway of your neighbor to the left, if you're facing the house, isn't there a wood fence or no?
Let's look at that picture.
It's
Left side of the house?
yeah, it's a picture. Caitlin, is like the first, second, fourth picture of the house. Well, this one, yeah. Is that, am I seeing a wood fence on the left-hand side there at the end of the driveway? Is that what that is?
No, that's chain link with bushes behind it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I was just saying maybe that portion that you see gets changed to wood.
Mm-hmm. So that's actually about 1.5 feet wide.
Front and side up to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, just a thought for the commissioners.
Right. I mean, in passing on the house, I don't even think that that's visible when there are cars there.
Yeah, but it's more visible. It's going to be a lot more visible when it's not in shadow. And there are times of the day that it won't be in shadow. I have a problem. I just think we have a guideline. We should stick with it. If it were on the edge, on the very edge of the historic boundary, I think we could think about that. We don't, that's not the way it is now. I'm gonna have to vote to replace it to meet the guidelines.
I'm in agreement with Ed. Just
I'll call for a vote.
I don't, I think it's unfortunate for the homeowner, but we have guidelines we've got to enforce, and where does it stop? The next time somebody says, well, you said wood fencing, but you said you let vinyl fencing happen in another place. Why not vinyl windows? Why not vinyl siding? I just don't know where it stops. And
Right.
It also condones the other the other property that technically shouldn't be even considered as another property having it. So, I mean, it's essentially kind of condoning more wrongdoing that was done.
Well, that's on the assumption that it wasn't through a previous committee or something. But yeah, our thinking is that this fence was, aside from that small piece on the left side of the house, which is really in a tunnel between the two houses, that's only 10 feet between the two houses on that side. But yeah, our thinking was that it was so not visible from this front-facing street that it was worth consideration under the case-by-case discussion.
yeah. Well, I mean, I go back to what would we have done if this were if brought to us initially before the fence was built. I would say absolutely it needs to be a wood fence. I mean, that's what we would say here.
So let me ask you, what would you consider to be an acceptable vinyl fence rear yard application then?
I think the one case that we've approved recently, it was on the border. The fence ran on the borderline of the historic district, facing a non-contributing, non-historic community facility that was getting damaged a lot. That I think made sense. And then when it got off that borderline, from that point on, it became a wood fence.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to make sense to me. If this were
Is there another scenario you would consider?
What's that?
Is there another scenario you would consider? I mean, there can't just be one.
I hesitate to start, I don't know. I mean, we'd look at it on a case by case basis. This doesn't seem like it's a case by case basis. If you came to us cold without a fence there, I would say it should be a wood fence. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mr. Schulman, we're reviewing your case here. It sounds like we have some different opinions among the commissioners. We do have a motion on the floor to approve the fence. I'm correct, John? That was your motion.
I seconded it.
You seconded it. I forget whose motion it was in the
Chris
first place.
Weston.
Chris Weston's motion?
Chris, I think
Yes.
so.
Okay. So Chris, you still stand by your motion? And
I do. I think that the fence is minimally visible, and we are allowed to approve vinyl fences on a case-by-case basis. Because this is minimally visible, I'm sticking with that.
Okay, and John, do you still stick with your second? Yes.
I do.
Okay, so I think we need to just go ahead and have our votes. Staff, if you could remind us what our quorum is for approval?
Sure. So I believe we need to have 7 affirmative votes for the motion to pass. We currently have 11 commissioners attending. Caitlin, can you just clarify that?
Yes, for a motion to carry, we need to have 11 votes in the affirmative. If it does not carry, then another motion needs to be brought to the floor.
Sorry,
Okay.
that was 11 affirmative votes?
7.
7. Great, thank you. All right, so we'll proceed with Chris Parts.
Yes.
Okay, Chris Weston,
Yes.
Dan,
No.
Ed,
No.
John,
Yes.
Lily,
No.
Tom,
No.
Ted,
No.
Wendy,
No.
and Phoebe, please.
No.
All right, the motion carries with 2 dissenting and 9 affirmative votes.
No, we had.
No,
No,
other,
no,
No.
it's the other way.
Oh,
Other
I'm
way around.
other way around. I'm so sorry.
So the
The
motion
motion does
failed.
not carry with 2 dissenting and 9 affirmative votes.
Okay, seeing that that motion failed, will we entertain another motion? Or we
I
from the commissioners?
I believe the motion should be to come back with a fence that he wants to replace it with. And we'll,
That complies with our design guidelines.
yes.
You can also make a motion to approve a wood fence so that the applicant doesn't need to wait. Am I correct in that, Caitlin?
Yes.
We still want to look at the design of it and see how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Could we specify the design?
If we want to get into designing it, I mean, there are a lot of ways to do wood fences.
I think that's up to the applicant to establish what kind of fence they want to propose, but it needs to comply with our guidelines.
There are.
I'm sorry. I need to do a 6-foot fence because of my dogs back there. That's why.
The 6 foot, the height is fine.
6 foot's
That
okay.
complies, yeah.
Yeah, I would replicate the exact same fence that's there in, I'd love to get away with just doing that visible piece down the driveway that was pointed out, and perhaps the section along that faces Cliveden, do both of those in wood.
I'd like to make a motion, Phoebe, I'd make a motion that the applicant resubmits with a proposal. He has heard the discussion from us, and he can take what pieces of that he wants to try to apply to weave that into his application. But I agree he needs, with Ed and others, that he should just bring back a full design rather than for us to try and design it for him right now.
Okay, great. It sounds, but I think that doesn't really require a motion. We had a motion and a case before us that we declined, and so now it's up to the property owner to come back to us with a new design. And that does not require our action at this point, and can be wait till the next meeting when he's ready to resubmit.
Good.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, you don't want to approve those 2 visible sections being done in wood and just.
No, we're going to not have an additional motion. It appears, and you can come back to us with your new application with what you propose. I suggest that you work with staff, and if you have any questions regarding the guidelines.
Perfect. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think that is our last of the cases up for discussion, and I believe staff has some historic review applications that were approved to present to us.
Yes, ma'am. We have quite a few. First was the Wellman property at 5112 South Rolling Road in Halethorpe, and they received a emergency review for an in-kind asphalt roof replacement. Then we had the 27 Frederick Road LLC property in Ellicott City. And this was a commercial tax credit application for multi-use apartments and retail office restaurant space. And we had the Wiesel property at 1201 Western Run Road, and they received Part 2 amendment for the replacement of 2 water heaters. Next, we have the Olaru property at 6315 Blackburn Court in Towson, and they received Part 2 approval for the in-kind replacement of the garage and main house slate roofs, furnace replacement, HVAC installation, water heater replacement, rear door repairs, and a clawfoot tub repair. Then we have the Palmer property at 606 Overbrook Road in Towson, and they received a Part 2 amendment for the rear deck replacement. And we had the Clemens property at 222 Central Avenue in Glendon, and they received an emergency review of their Part 2 application for a broiler replacement. And finally, we had the Jones property at 705 Kenley Road in Towson, and the applicants received Part 2 approval for exterior painting, repairs, and replacements to the existing slate roof, louvered shutters, trim, and wood shingle siding. And that was it.
Thank you. So do the commissioners have any comments, questions, or anything else that they would like to discuss? Hearing none, thank you all for taking the time to attend. Our next meeting is February 13th, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
You move, we adjourn.
There's a second?
Second.
Okay, I think we can just do a voice vote. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.